Morning, Blues Cruisers! I'm Barry Walter from Blues Cruise. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our host, Bill Wax, legendary creator, program director for Bluesville, Sirius XM. Very fond memories of listening to his conversations with B.B. King on Bluesville. And you're in for a really rare event this morning. Thanks for coming out. Bill.
Thank you all. Good day, y'all. Let me introduce my guest to you. Probably most of you say, well, we know who he is, but I would like to tell you a little bit more. 10 Grammy nominations, 4 times winner, and up for 2 more starting this weekend, so it could end up being 6 winners. He's also getting the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys this year. In my way of thinking, it's 40 years too late, but better late than never. At least 43 albums under his own name. He's made music for 11 films, as well as being an actor and performer. Please, show some love for the maestro, Taj Mahal.
Thank you very much.
So, as they say in the song, I want to begin at the beginning if we can. And so I've done a little research. I know your dad was from the West Indies.
Yeah.
And your mom was from South Carolina. And one of the facts I learned that your dad played with Buddy Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Did you get to know Buddy at all?
Yeah, Buddy's my godfather. He wrote that song, Since I Fell For You, that Lenny Welch made a big hit up. Yeah, he and his sister, Ella. All the stories, we got stories. But yeah, he was from South Carolina also. My mother was born in Shira, South Carolina, and raised up in Bennettsville, South Carolina. If you know Shira, South Carolina, it's the home of Dizzy Gillespie. And Dizzy's aunt Thelma delivered it, my mother, and my uncle Elmo. Okay, so that's the way it went in those days. She was the midwife for that area. And my mother grew up in Bennettsville, South Carolina, and went to school at the South Carolina State. Graduated in 36 or 37 in early childhood development and childhood education. And then her family migrated and immigrated to New York, and my father's family immigrated to the United States from St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean. So as much as I have the blues in my voice, I also have the Caribbean. And yes,
So I also know that you had a sister, unfortunately is not on this realm anymore, Carol Frederick.
Yeah.
Who was a fabulous vocalist, incredibly popular in France and Europe. And as a matter of fact, I first came across her when I was still at XM, and her record came across my desk, and I went, holy mackerel, this is God's sister, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in the house? You got 2 great vocalists. Did you sing together anytime?
Oh yeah, well, music was happening. My father was a classically trained Caribbean pianist. And in the Caribbean, they are very well aware that the world will look at us from Africa as, running around having all this rhythm and and you don't really have to work really hard at anything. That's the thought, Y'all got all that rhythm over there, so it's just easy for you to just go right ahead and play anything. Well, that's the ball of wax you get if you don't rub it till it gets, some energy in it so you can fashion it to be something. You can't do nothing with it. So what they make you do is learn classical first, so that no one can question you whether you can actually play. Okay, so he played the classical music, jazz, bebop, Caribbean music, jump blues, you name it, and so and in order to have a family, he quit being involved with traveling on the road and supported his family as long as he could keep up with the records. So the music was changing, very rapidly in those days. And so as a young man, I was like, from all I can remember is music. I don't ever remember a day in this 82 years that I had ever heard music in my head, in my life, surrounding me, coming from out, from in, however. And so we heard all the music happening back in those days. Boomers, Jackson, let's see, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Earl Hines, Coleman Hawkins, Chu Berry, Illinois Jacket, I just sit there and go, there's a lot of music. And then, of course, my mother brought the Southern, gospel, and she also trained classical too, later after developing her music. So yeah, it was music around the house, people sang, and the classic thing was that my mother was very religious, and Sunday, do not go near the record player. From dawn to just about dusk, because she was playing gospel music all day. And then I became familiar with some of the great gospel singers, and the godmother of rock and roll, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and Mahalia Jackson, and every kind of bands that, or singers, group singers, the Dixie Hummingbirds, the Soul Stirrers. That's what's coming right out my mouth. Claude Jeter and the Swan Skeletons. Oh yeah, most definitely. The Highway QC, of course the Soul Stirrers, and Clara Ward, and Mahalia, and everybody. Just, so it was always, to me, it was like, music was like messages from ancestors, See, this is before the business. It got to be the business of the music. So this was our group creating things, putting it on wax, communicating with one another before the corporate got in and said, okay, now we want so many MFs in here, we want so many DIs in there, and blah, 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 do all these kind of things like that. So the music was really growing within the culture and serving the culture's needs, and so yeah, it was exciting. And all around me, everybody was, I became clearly aware that, some highly musical culture, but this also made me aware of other people's cultures and what kind of music they were into. I grew up, I was born in Harlem, and I grew up in Western Massachusetts, and there were immigrants for everybody. So, you had to hear people's music, Mr. Pesanetti would come home every day, and his wife would take his shoes off and open his tie, and he'd roll his sleeves up and went to Grappa there and dropped the needle on some opera, and the neighborhood would hear, or you hear this kind of music or that kind of music. And so you became familiar with it and gave, I always gave, a lot of the older musicians would always say to you, son, over here, you got a long life ahead of you, and you better learn how to play every kind of music you can get your hands on. And so I paid attention to that and listened to the music that I could feel in my heart and my soul, spirit, wherever it came from, So that's kind of like, yeah, that's a long yes to you. Answer my question.
I'm hoping we have a lot more long yeses. But there was a time when you were sort of walking away from music, because I heard all the time you were into agriculture.
No, I wasn't walking away from
Oh,
music.
not walking away from
No, see, what I did was I realized that in my ancient culture, music and agriculture were together. So in this construct, matrix paradigm, I saw the music. It was a little bit different. It wasn't, but it needed to be a part of it. But also I saw a shift coming in food and agriculture and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do something natural in my life. And, whatever it was, I didn't want to be working with some other kind of weird, academic kind of way of doing things. Because, farming was really a good thing, and I saw the need to be able to be in control of raising your food, something that as a kid, I was thinking about it, and then as an adult, we're here, okay? And I was involved in it. So my point was that to learn to play the music, regardless of what it was I was doing, if I'd ever been able to get the loan at that time to start farming, I would have farmed, and then Saturday night we would have swept out the hay mound, and the boys would come over and we'd have hooked it up and been dancing and playing. And so, even outside of all this I maintain a relationship with my guitars and the music, the older forms of music that I'm continuously learning about and connecting it up to the ancient music.
So, where does the change coming from Massachusetts to going into New York City in the early 60s in the beginning, recording or being influenced by people maybe like Sleepy John Estes? Is that where you first come across him, and Yank Rachel?
Well, those guys were an extension. Tragically, I lost my dad in like 12 and a half years, and my mother then remarried to a Jamaican man. So she, from one Caribbean man to another Caribbean man, and she liked the Caribbean man. And they said, my mother liked Caribbean men. Right. And so, anyway, my stepfather came to the family unbeknownst to me and to all of us. We didn't know anything about this, actually, until he was interviewed for a book that we did back in, I think, the 80s or the 90s, and he told the story of how the guitar got in the house. Okay, so my dad played piano, and now it switched over to guitar. I took a few lessons on piano, but they told my mother, Mildred, don't waste your money. That boy already playing boogie woogie. The guitar. So anyway, quickly, the story is that Saturday, my parents, my mother and my stepfather were out making market or shopping, and I was the eldest in charge of 8 other kids, right? And so we had not a large house, but a good sized house, and we playing hide and seek. And I got into a closet that had a lot of stuff in it, and I was scooching back way in the corner of the closet so you could open the door. If you looked in, you couldn't see anything. But I was way in the back of the house, so as I scooched back in the closet, my back goes up against what I know is an instrument. Okay, so game over. So I pulled this thing out, and I can't believe it's an arch. It was a K arch top F-O guitar. And it's like, where, how, who, what, all these different things like that, And so little by little, I started trying to play it. So I was taken across the hall into a door that led to the cellar, close the door behind me, and sit on the stairs, and just trying to figure out, well, where is this music coming out of? So one day, while I'm there trying to play it, the door opens up and my stepfather says, well, I see you found it. And he never stopped me. He never said, you can't put the guitar back. Go and take it. Go and touch it. Never said nothing. So springtime comes, and some boys move in next door to the people that live next door. Their youngest brothers came up from North Carolina. And, boys, as they usual, bragging across the fence. I got a bicycle. Well, what you got? I got a ball. I got a bat. Oh, I got a glove. Well, let's go down and do this. Blah, blah. And finally, the guy across the fence decides he's gonna stop all this back and forth and say, well, I play guitar. And I said, well, I got a guitar. I said, well, let me see your guitar. So I go in the house and I bring the guitar up, and he said, you got a pair of pliers? I said, yeah. And so I go get a pair of pliers, and by the time I come out, he's unwinding the G string off of the guitar. And I'm here, what is this guy doing? So I give him the pair of pliers, and this is, the 4 strings, E, A, D, G are wound. The B and E are unwound strings, just a wire. So I give him the pliers, and he unwinds all the winding off of the G string. I'm like, what is this cat doing? And then he puts the string back on, and he makes that B.B. King whining sound. He said, now that's how you make it talk. We are now hot together with Gorilla Glue. No epoxy in the world is going to keep me, as tighter in this store. I couldn't believe this guy. How are you 14 or 15 and you can play as good as a grown man? Well, please. So I followed him around. By that time, I was like listening to a lot to like Jimmy Reed. I really loved Jimmy. And this guy taught me how to play that kind of stuff. And blind bore full of a little bit of Lightning Hopkins. And then, this is, you talk about divine. 5 doors up the street around the corner. We lived on Marion Street, 5 houses. Turn the corner on Bay Street. And the second house upstairs, those people were from Clarksdale, Mississippi. Okay? Not only were they from Clarksdale, Clarksdale was the big city next to where they actually were, which was Stovall, Mississippi. Stovall, Mississippi, and down on Colonel Stovall's farm was where Muddy Waters was. Okay? So these guys could really get in there. Okay? And particularly Ernest, Junior and Ernest Nichols. And I used to come up and hang out and just wait at the door. And Ernest said, I know what you want. He said, well, I'm busy right now. If you patient enough to wait for me, when I get done here, I'll play it. He knew what I wanted to hear, which was Boogie Children by John Lee Hooker. And this guy played it, just like it was, and so I was just so enamored by the creativity of people who had been not schooled by the system, and just unbelievable the level of creativity of society. My dad and mom taught me about my culture, and that they had a lot of stuff that was astounding that didn't get represented in the regular communication about culture. But anyway, so yeah, I just was very, very. That's what I wanted to learn how to be connected to. Didn't want to write no notes. I don't want to know about nothing about no notes. I just want to know about the feel of the music. And that's, those are the 2 significant things with the guitar that sort of set me in the direction, of course I would listen to all the players, Chuck Berry, and incidentally enough, B.B. King, T-Bone Walker, I like that music at first because I was brought in through jazz, and I was waiting for it to change. It sounded like it didn't change at all until I understood, the modes that things were in, and then, then at that point, I was really happy. Became a devout fan of these great players. But yeah, that's kind of like what got me started, and then I sort of stayed in that mode from about 14 till 19 or 21, 20 I think, when I went to school. I think I went to school when I was 19 or 21. 19 I went to the University of Massachusetts, and I came headlong into the whole folk music movement, which was underpinned by the rediscovery of some of these older players, which was something that I was thinking about saying, you can't tell me there was all the people playing out there and they done just disappeared. Well, they did. It appeared that way. So then that's when I started being able to see all these great players, Son House, Booker White, Sleepy John Estes, and Nance Lipscomb, Brown McGee, Sanitary, Reverend Gary Davis, and many others, and get close to them, get to know them, and Booker White. I actually spent a great day with Arthur Big Boy Crook. He was out on the West Coast, and I took him around to different places he needed to get to. Well, just things of that nature, and and then the big move for me into the recording came after I was involved at going to university. I majored in animal husbandry, minored in veterinary science, agronomy, and dairy technology. And at one time I was a herdsman and a foreman, and I had 150 Holstein cows, which I milked 70 cows twice a day by myself with 4 surge machines, carrying the milk too. And anyway, so but all alongside of it, the music is going along alongside. Hey, you work, you play, you work. And so I was really lucky. The university at that time and the coffee houses had sprung up, and all that kind of stuff was happening. So I was pretty happy that there was entrance into the world of all these great blues players. And I didn't care if I was the last person on earth, I was gonna play the blues the way I heard it. And that's pretty much what I've been. That's what I've been traveling behind. I mean, doing that. Like right now at 82, there's still stuff happening. Not just a little. It's not like that. It's still happening. Living the life of, like I would say, an American Creole. That's why this is like this traditional dress for West African Creole. And anyway, yeah. So it just was exciting. And then we went to California, and the reason I went to California was that I hooked up with a guy that was. Okay, let me tell the story right. Okay, by this time I had gotten a little bit of a reputation of being able to play. So I was playing at the Club 47, and they asked me would I come back up from Springfield, which is about 90 miles away, and do some of these hootenannies. Okay, and we won't go into the long story about hootenannies. It's a short perspective. All right, well, it's Hoot Gibson, and his wife was named Annie. So everyone say, you want a hootenanny? What is a hootenanny? A hootenanny. All right. So anyway, this guy comes in and says he wants to play, and I said, okay. So you got 2 songs. If they like you got 1 song or not. So he says, he writes his name down, goes down. I said, there's a tune-up room down there, and it goes on, tunes up, and so the guy's on, plays, gets his encore, so I go down the hall, say, hey guy, you're up next. And as I'm walking toward the door, I'm hearing this incredible 12-string music. So I open the door, and this guy's got the monster Galliano 12-string. And instead of playing it like a bow tie, he's got it like this. He's playing it like this. Looking at the neck while he's. So anyway, I'm like, okay, this ought to be interesting. So he gets up and plays, and he plays two songs with 2 lead bellies, Gallows Pole and Panther Street, and the audience really loves him. He didn't have a great singing voice, but he really could play his guitar. And then he plays an instrumental called Meadowlands. And I was literally transported from where I was into some Meadowlands somewhere. It's a beautiful piece of music. So later we got to talking, then ultimately we end up as a duo. So he's playing 12-string guitar. So one night he asked to play my guitar, a 6-string Epiphone, whatever that, Texan, and he starts to play. And I'm like going, wait a second, this music sounds exactly like them old time records that I like that you can't find nobody who knows how to play them. Somebody. So I said, well, how'd you learn how to do that? And he says, well, I took lessons from this guy out in California. I said, yeah. I said, well, who's that? He says, there's a guy named Rye. I said, Rye? I said, do you think that guy would like to be in a band? I'm moving forward immediately. I said, you think that guy would like to be in a band? He says, I don't know. I said, well, can we get him out here? He says, I think that might be a little hard. He's 17 years old. I said, we're going to California. And so little by little, we ended up going out to California. And within a couple of days of me being out on the West Coast, I hooked up with Ryan. And not too long after that, we were in the midst of a group. And that became the Rising Suns. That went through his cycle. And then I started out on my own, solo. And here we are.
So before you totally in the West Coast, I have a couple of questions mainly about the East Coast. First of all, Joseph Spence, where do you run across Joseph Spence?
I run across Joseph Spence in the music room of the Student Union at the University of Massachusetts. I used to go in between my classes because I would write my notes down on pencil and on legal paper, yellow paper, and then I would come back and I would transfer my notes in legible, writing. I made room in between my classes. So I'm sitting there one day, and they were like, in the music room, had 3 pianos, a great old upright grand, a terrible spinet, and a great big grand piano, 9-foot Steinway in the middle of the room. And then it had like 4 listening booths. So I'm sitting there and I hear this music that sounds like my grandparents. So I walk over to the door and I'm standing outside the door and the guy opens the door and he says, man, I don't know, I can't get into this music. I said, wow. I said, man, this is really good. It sounds like my grandparents. He says, I brought this album in and he says, you want it? I said, well, how much you want? He says, he says, I'm not getting it. And he says, I'll give it to you free. I said, you sure? He said, yeah. So I take the album home, and I'm reading the notes. It's on Folkways. It's called Folk Music of the Bahamas on Folkways. And I just couldn't even imagine meeting this guy. But ultimately, he came onto the East Coast and he did a tour, and I got to see him there. And then he came out to the West Coast 2 years later, and I hosted him at my house.
Wow.
And for a month and a half, and then I went down to see him in the Bahamas. Yeah, fabulous. There's no other, that's only one, Joseph Spence. No
one sounds like him, plays like him.
Yeah, plays like there's 3 guitar players. Yeah, wonderful.
His version of Santa Claus is coming.
Oh yeah,
is unbelievable.
It's coming to town.
The best.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The best. So, so let me catch up here for a second. So you're on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Is that also where you've run into then Ray Charles? I mean, you probably heard his music before.
Yeah, I actually took even alongside of learning the stuff I was learning on guitar and banjo and mandolin and all that kind of stuff. I also had a kind of R&B and rock band while I was in college, and I took all those guys down to the Municipal Auditorium in Springfield in 1962 to hear Ray Charles, and that was a great band. I mean, everybody was in that band,
Absolutely.
Hank Crawford, you know, Joe Newman, Marcus Belgrave, Paul Cooper on baritone, Pat Newman, you know, and
And Percy Mayfield is that where you also first run across Percy's stuff through Red?
no, I heard his stuff. You know, there's a lot of people you heard their music, you didn't know that they were the writers of it, or you heard them and they wrote that. Because I mean, we didn't, the information about the musicians wasn't filtered through the corporate. It came through, you know, the grapevine in the community. So, you know, you heard about Mahalia Jackson or Sister Rosetta Thorpe or Shirley Caesar through the grapevine, you know, the gospel grapevine, you know.
So let me ask you about a couple others then. Otis Redding.
I love Otis. What the whole thing about Otis is that the great doo-wop music, you know, that was basically going out. Otis was the last guy that was the last holdout of that great sound. You know, really kind of powerful medium tempo. So when I came from the East Coast to the West Coast, Otis was somebody I heard out on the West Coast also. So it was familiar. And then we got, you know, there's a couple of things in this life that were really pretty amazing. One of them was the Rising Suns got to open for Otis Redding for like a week at the Whiskey and Go, 2 shows a night, 3 on Saturday. And that was, without a doubt, one of the best live shows that I ever saw in my life. I mean, just the most powerful. And we also opened for the Temptations for a week during the height of their career, which was really good. Nobody clapped for us. It was okay. Hey, yeah. You know, it's like you gotta pay your dues. You know, and because you know everybody came there. In those days, everything was in boxes. So all these people who didn't know in LA who lived apart from one another didn't know that they were all listening to the same music. So now they're all lined up with one another. See what the hell are you doing here? Oh, I don't know this music. You know, and so it was like a bit of tension. So then here come on these guys playing, you know, Stage Girl Blues and Candyman and all that, and they're not having it. You know, and it's like if somebody went to clap, everybody in the room would like look around. How dare you? I'm serious, man. But then once the Temptations came on, they broke the guys. And that's when they were really doing it. They were really doing it. Had all the great songs. We opened it for them, and we also opened for Martha and the Vandals.
Absolutely.
And they were then also fortunate enough to see be present for the recording of Otis Redding live on Sunset Strip, and Otis Redding live at the Whiskey and Go-Go every night, every show, every note.
Wow. That's powerful stuff. So the Ash Grove, one more from that era, which was the club on the West Coast for folk music.
Oh yeah, they were really good. The Ash Grove was run by Ed and Bernie, and it was supported by I'm trying to think, was not Longfellow, one of the great poets, his great niece. She supported the Ash Grove. And this is a place that played Mississippi John Hurt, you know, Booker White, Lightning Hopkins, Clifton Chenier, you know, Shane Gay, you know, Bill Monroe, what's that guy's name? Guitar player, came through there a lot. Merle Travis, Johnny, I mean, all kinds of people came in because it was in Hollywood, you know. And so you got people like Grandpa Munster, you know, who would come up and who liked nothing but blues. He was big around Booker White. That was what he liked. And Tuesday Well, you know, Johnny Cash, Mick Jagger, and Rolling Stones. and the animals would come in. All these different people would come into this place because it had the real music all the time, 24/7. So when I first got out to California, I was like the doorman and the bouncer, opening act every now and then, and all kinds of things like that, just to be near that club for the music that it played. It played a big role. And Rye used to come in to hear music. Linda Ronstadt, Firestein Theater.
You're working with David Osmond for Treasure Island, right? The new radio play of Treasure Island. You're doing some of the music and a performer on it.
Yeah.
With David Osmond.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
David told me.
Word gets around.
And that's coming in the next few months. Should be out, and the radio adaptation of Treasure Island.
Treasure Island, yeah.
So that should be fabulous. When did the first your two solo records come out?
67, 68.
So what is the response? I mean, when you go to the record company, they give you carte blanche to do what you want?
Well, what happened was that we all, when the Rising Sons disbanded, we all disbanded on good terms, but everybody was signed individually. Are you having difficulty hearing me? Is this right? Okay, good. Everybody was signed individually, so about a year and a half after, I was going like, hey, you know what? I'm on this record label. They signed us as a band, and they signed us individually. So I literally said, okay, who's the president? Oh, Clive Davis. So I picked the phone up and called the president. And said, I'd like to, I called and talked to the secretary and told him that I was an artist on their label, and I wanted to make some records, and would like to talk to Clive Davis. So she said, all right, well, let me take your number, and so forth and so on. She took my number, and 3 hours later, Clive Davis called me. And so I talked with him and told him what I wanted to do, and he said, well, okay, we'll send a couple producers out on our dime. We'll make some demos, So what they did really good was they sent out David Rubinson, the first person, and he and I clicked immediately. And not only did we click immediately, we pulled off the Damon Dash Jay-Z number. He did the business, I did the music, and he left me alone to do the music. So he never told me what to do, how to do, where to do, blah, blah, blah. So here I was, all of a sudden, with a recording session and a bunch of songs in my head, and I didn't really have a band, but I knew the guys that could play, and I used to get them jamming Candy and this one and that one. And so Monday night comes and I call the guys down there. Nobody knows anything. The only person that had any idea what the music was probably Brian Cooter. He was on rhythm guitar on that session. And Jesse Davis, who I just become acquainted with, and Jimmy Broadway Thomas, and James Broadway Thomas, and Sanford Conical. And so I just would go around. The two guys I never had to say anything to was Rye and Jesse Davis. Told the bass player what the line was, told the drummer how the feel that I wanted, and then I told him what the riff was, and then you heard it we're off. And down the road we went. So we recorded a bunch of stuff like that. It was like sessions, and then so once Davis figured out what direction I was going in, then he would put some things together. He put together Diver Duck and A Lot of Love on that first album, and did the horns on My Love, and let me see what else we do. Oh yeah, Dust My Broom. Yeah, we did that one. Cut more toward the tradition with Diver Duck and stuff. And then but by then, the next album was like everything really tight, you know. And I like came to the session with the bass line to Mailbox Blues. I walked around singing it so I wouldn't forget it. And then I got up and I borrowed from this guy's tape recorder, sung the notes into the tape recorder, and then came down to the session and said, I want it to sound like, I want the drums to go boom, 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 boom. You know, yeah, well, you know, get it until it walks, it's in your body. You know, and you know, we have and the same thing. Like you listen to, as soon as you hear Schumaker, Katie, you know what tune it is. It comes in, you know, all the tunes have a personality to it. But I grew up like that with musicians that, you know, listening to musicians that had, you know, you could tell who they were when they come in just by the sound of their horn or their piano or bass. So tunes had to have a personality, you know. Yeah, on and on, you know. So the first album was like some wild style, you know, and the second was like, you know, a little bit more reined in. And we're talking 4-track, 8-track. You know, we ain't talking 24-track. And then by the time we got to the giant set album, we was getting pretty slick, you know, and so that's why I put out that old folks at home so people got an idea what the raw material sounds like.
And then the finished material.
Then finished material, you know. And I didn't use the songs that were on the record. This was the Giant Step side was the songs that were there, and the old folks at home were about different kinds of songs.
So then I want to ask you about someone else that you were working with just the next year or two, and that's the Pointer Sisters, because when I heard the album that had them on it, they sing two songs, Texas Woman Blues and Sweet Home Chicago.
Right.
I had never heard of Pointer Sisters at that point. All of a sudden I'm going, who the heck are these ladies? I mean, this is unbelievable background singing. It's before they're even really recorded.
Yeah.
Where do you come across them?
California, they were from Arkansas. Their mother and father were both ministers. They had stereo religion in the house. They were hot church girls, you know.
That they were.
Okay, and you know, they were really gay. You know, they sang like the Boswell sisters. They sang like the This Sisters and That Sisters, church music, and they were gay, really gay. They bought their clothes, you know, got their clothes from, you know, like Goodwill and all that kind of crazy stuff, secondhand clothes stores, and they dressed cool and they're fun. And so David Rubinson introduced me to them. And so I started working with them. I actually took them on the road some different times and we played. But yeah, look, actually if you go back, look for Texas Woman Blues, the Pointer Sisters. There's two versions. There's the recorded version on Recycling the Blues, and then there's a live version. The recorded version has only 3 of them on it, but the live version is video at the Amundsen Theater. And so this is the one where I'm playing bass and singing, and those girls are like a horny section. And so it's a lot of fun.
So then the next question in terms of bands is a band with 4 tubas in it.
Yeah.
Come on now. I mean, nobody, except if they're a marching band, but nobody's walking on stage with 4 tubas.
No, because they, you know, the industry has got everybody like, you in your lane. You gotta stay in your lane. Don't go a half degree over here or half a degree over there, or you'll lose your audience. You know, people need to be challenged. That's what the trouble is, you know. And and if they don't like it, I'm still gonna challenge me. It's gonna be after years in. But no, anyway, what happened was there was a woman that was taking guitar lessons from me in Boston, moved to New York, and was involved in with Jimi Hendrix and a bunch of different people, the Opera War, blah, 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 and knew Howard Johnson. And Howard said he was looking, he wished he could move, expand, what he was working with. So this young lady told him he needed to come down and hear me, because I was an open-minded musician. And so we were playing in Umgangos in West 72nd Street, New York. And I came off the stage, and this guy was in the dressing room with this big horn that looked like an oversized baritone horn, So then I knew it wasn't a baritone, but daggone it looked like one. So I remember walking by and saying, "Hey man, what's that? How you doing?" And I said, "What you got over there? A baritone?" He said, "No man, a tuba." I'm like, "Boy, these jazz cats. they'll play jazz on anything." So anyway, he said, "Man, I like to sit in." So I was like, "Okay." So we had Bill Rich on bass and Jimmy Carsky on drums, Ed on guitar, vocals and harmonica. So the two of them sat in. He sat in with Bill, and he and Bill got along real good. They played back and forth. And so then after that show, Howard said, "Listen, come around tomorrow, and you can hear a band. We got 7 tubas." Yeah, I'm serious. 7 tubas, upright bass, Susan Evans playing piano, and I can't think of who was on the drums. This guy named Williams. And anyway, I went up to hear them guys play, and that was some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard in the low register. All the way up to the F tuba, which is a fat baby. It's like a tuba about this size. It looks like a fat baby. And then also too, I had an opportunity to have Ray Draper sit in on tuba. He did a record with John Coltrane playing tuba, the small tuba. But yeah, so, it's good. And I wanted to challenge myself. I've done the 3 records. I did, let's see, was this before or after this? I think this was before. No, let me see, it would have to be the Jazz Illuminati came in. I mean, it was all there at the Billboard nights.
Well, they probably hadn't heard of 4 tuba band either.
Well, they knew Howard without.
Right, but not 4 tubas.
Well, they were around town, though. See, that whole bunch played around town. It was Earl McIntyre, Joe Daly, Bob Stewart, this guy named Bergeron, who played tuba with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And then there was Morris Edwards and another guy named Ed Higgins. There was a bunch of different people. Ed Owen, Howard's daughter, Netta, who played bass and also played tuba.
So I want to say this at this point, and then as you referred to the idea that you weren't going to be in the box, and I would say that out of all the things I've loved about your career, and there is a lot, it is that never-ending desire to look for more magic music in different forms than almost any artist I can think of. It made all the difference to me, and it helped me formulate and realize, no, this is much broader than this. It comes from way. So I used to say, well, the Mississippi's a huge river, and all kinds of music comes flowing down on it, and the blues is part of
it
it.
goes back and forth.
Right.
Because the blues come down the river to New Orleans, and because, they pick the cotton up in the Delta, and it comes down and goes out to the mouth of the river, I mean, the thing is that you can't take a bunch of people off of a continent, spread them in the Western Hemisphere from Terra del Fuego, all the way up to Nome, Alaska, and they influence all the music. I mean, what's really interesting about the whole thing is you don't hear the blues in Cuba, Santo Domingo. You don't hear the blues in Puerto Rico. You don't hear the blues in Brazil, but you hear something that's like melancholy. All those people like that are melancholy. Even in Africa, you can get right to where you hear that sound and you feel that energy. Like, not so much.
Okay. I have 3 albums I want to ask you about because the 3 of your albums that I came across through the years and I've always wondered how they came about. I'm going to start with Conjuring from 1980. For those of you who don't know, it was an album that Taj did with Ula Dara, Dave Murray, Alan Toussaint, Carla Bley, Lester Bowie, some of the greatest outside jazz players, as well as, Alan Toussaint, who's magic in his own way. But they see you had Ishmael Reed's lyrics, and then you made the music to it. How does that all? Kip Hanrahan or
Kip Hanrahan, yeah.
So how did that all work? You guys must have been amazing in sessions.
Yeah. Well, I used to run into Ishmael on the street, and we'd always talk in Berkeley, and we'd always talk about doing stuff together. For something, these guys are dropping anchor. I know what it might be. I think I'm adopted. Okay, that's what's going on. And I think you gotta take he's dropping anchor. Because you gotta take a tender to get to the shore. Right. That's tomorrow. Okay. Hey, we'll try it. Anyway, so I used to run into him. He was always talk about this, that, and the other thing. And then he came to me and said, "Hey, listen, we're putting together this band with this guy Kip Hanrahan, who puts together all these different kind of people." So I was right up my alley, because of the players in that were, let me think of it. Friesian Augustine from Haiti. Let me see who else played. Pontilla Rios, Ongero. What was that mostly? I can't. The guy that played the cone. It was a bunch of different players. Well, yeah. Carla Bley and all those different people. So it was wonderful to get in there. And so they had only asked me to play one song. And what happened was that the singer that they got for that was a trained singer. So he couldn't sing certain kinds of music. What he did when he sang, he had to, when the sea goes the then they got nothing to do with, see, right? They didn't have nothing, he couldn't do that. Or some of the other tunes that were there, because there were some really great tunes. Plus, I got to open up my chops and be able to sing a lot of songs that people weren't familiar with me being able to do.
And Ula Dara, decades later, does this great blues album, not too long ago, Your Lips and all those wonderful music, and Lester Bowie starts doing outside jazz with I Only Have Eyes for You.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
That was great. Oh, yeah. The brass, please, which is like one of my favorite tunes, one of the Mingos, and to hear a big brass band do it. Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Really is.
I love Lester. Because I'm actually hung with him and Henry Threadgill. And then those guys had a loft out on 13th Street in New York City. To go in there. I remember taking some friends of mine. And we opened the door to the loft and it was like opening the trunk. And what the heck is the name of that movie where the guy opens the trunk? The cop opens the trunk and you all you see is the smoking boots. Baghdad camping. We open the door and it's like, ooh, the molecules will change forever. No, serious.
And Henry's daughter is recording now too, Pine Threadgill. Have you run across her at all?
No.
She recorded an album of Robert Johnson tunes.
Really?
From a very much jazz,
Point of view?
Fabulous.
Oh, I want to
stuff.
hear that.
I'll get you a copy.
Well, yeah, because it's like,
I'm sorry.
yeah. That's like, what's the one from Jackson, Mississippi, saying, what is that lady's name? No. Yeah, right. Cassandra Wilson.
Right.
She did some job.
I'll get you the Pine 30.
Yeah, I want to hear that. That'd be great.
Really interesting.
Yeah, great.
Fascinating.
All right.
Okay, so let me ask you about another record, and this is when you start to then be interested, well, you've always been interested, but we start to show that interest on record in terms of African music, and that's Kulu Jan.
Ulan John, yeah.
So how do you meet originally Tumani Diabate?
I met Tumani Diabate through his father's music. I got turned on to an album. Well, first of all, I knew there was a link between like John Hurt, Elizabeth Cotton, Reverend Gary Davis, Mrs. Etta Baker, and all them finger pickers, you know, in an older form of music. But finding it was kind of difficult. But then I did. And, you know, this is what I'm doing my work. I wanted to link up, you know. So, somewhere along about I think in the late '60s, Sing Out magazine with in the help of Mark Pebar, who's now led by Mark Pebar, right? Went to the Gambia and recorded Al Haji by Conte in Brikama, you know, outside of Banjul. And I was walking east on Mass Avenue from Harvard Square, and I walked past the Briggs and Briggs guitar store, and I always take a look and see what's they got in the window. And I saw something, and I walked probably like 15 paces and said, "You need to back up, go check that out." And I went in, and it turned out it was this great photograph of Al Haji by Conte next to the strings of his car. Okay, so I went in and bought that album, and of course you hear the strings of finger picking all through it, you know. And so little by little, eventually I got to meet him. He built my first car, and then I was in years later. I was in Sweden playing in and I came late to the show, not for me, but the opening act had started already. So I'm standing backstage saying, "Boy, this guy's cutting it up," and I'm never really like, I'm always glad to hear something. So let's see who the heck this guy is. So the first show gets over, and a young man comes backstage, and it turns out it's Eric Bibb. So I said, "Eric Bibb," I said, "Are you in relationship to Leon Bibb?" He said, "Oh, that's my dad." I was like, "Whoa, okay." I said, when I first came to New York at 19 years old and came to the Village, two guys I saw. One was Richie Havens, and the other was your dad. And I was impressed by both of them, needless to say. But anyway, the conversation goes on. I said to him, I said, "Have you ever listened to any, core or griot music?" He said, "Yeah." He started talking to me about this, that, and the other thing. And then it ended up that he had an album by Sidiki Diabate, Jelamati Sissoko, Batu Seko Kuyate, and one other player. I can't. Yeah. So anyway, it turns out Balake Sissoko was the next door neighbor to Mani, to Siddiqui. So I listened to them, and I really liked Batu. So years later again, I'm listening to these records from Spain. These southern Spanish guys got together and made this record. And as soon as I saw this name, I said, "I bet you that guy's connected with, Tamale is connected with Siddiqui Jabate. So yes, Tamale is was the 71st generation real. And his son Siddiqui, which is named after the grandfather. Siddiqui is amazing. I mean, it's like we're listening to all this different music here. I'm telling you, you guys can get your ears on and go global, because there's so much out there for you to hear that's related to the music that you like, and I mean, it's the ancestor that, instead of it being like the law of diminishing returns, like you got Cornelius Vanderbilt. He makes a lot of money. He's all this, but by the time he gets here 4 generations away, ain't no money. Right? Because people don't know how to maintain it. Well, Gloria is smart enough as she was. She is really smart. She figured out what to do with it to make it happen. But when you do, when it starts out here with the original griot that gets the vision and the image, and comes in and learns how to do the music, attaches himself to a royal family, becomes the living library, and that translates itself down generation to generation. So 1 goes into 2, 1 and 2 go into 3, 1, 2, 3 go into 4. So it's building as it's going. It's building critical mass as it moves down the line instead of the law of diminishing returns. So by the time you get around however many generations past the original idea, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's so dense, and it doesn't move. It hasn't been, shifted around by corporate. It's its own matrix, and it's not angry. It ain't trying to steal nothing. I mean, it's just really beautiful. Yeah. So I knew that we had created things here. John Hurt, Elizabeth Cotton, Reverend Gary Davis, Blind Blake, Blind Boy Fuller, all of us had created something from that root in this environment, and I wanted to connect that music up with its original ancestor.
And you did.
Yes.
Very well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. There's one note. This year marks the 25th year of the recording of Hulan John, and there will be, I think next year there will be vinyl and other ways to get a hold of that music. And it sounds even better 25 years later.
So I've got another one album I wanted to know about, and that is The Hot Spot, which is, for those of you who don't know, it was movie music from a lousy movie. I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, it was good. People consider it lousy. But overseas, they did this.
All right, you're nicer than I am.
To be frank with you, Don Johnson has certainly done better work. Okay. I mean, it was like,
I got to say, Dennis Hopper, it was a fun for that. He wanted all you musicians to do the music. So let me just mention, in case you people don't know, John Lee Hooker, Earl Palmer, Roy Rogers, and Miles Davis, and Taj Mahal are the ones responsible.
Tim Drum.
And Tim Drum, right, are responsible for this soundtrack for The Hot Spot. Did you all get in a room together? Was there a time when John Lee Hooker, Miles Davis, and you were sitting in a room making this music?
Well, the rhythm section, Earl, Tim, Roy Rogers on slide guitar, John Lee Hooker and myself were playing all together. And then Miles came in the room. So then Miles came in, and then he played, he overdubbed. But we were all there.
Right.
Yeah, it was great. It was pretty fantastic. The fantastic part about it is that all the suits were there because Miles was going to be there. And they were bumping into each other like pea soul tops, Miles is coming, Miles is coming. The sky is falling, And so, So finally Miles comes in with his nephew carrying the trumpets, and John Lee Hooker's over by the piano, standing up, and Miles walks in, sees John Lee Hooker, and walks. Makes a beeline to John Lee, Hooker. And Miles was like, it was like he was talking to his beloved grandfather. I mean, Miles don't give up that. You know, he don't give it up. He walk into the room, you know, he doesn't give that up. He was like a 5-year-old talking to his favorite grandfather. And so later on, I asked John Lee, I said, John Lee, what did Miles say to you? He said, you look like you just come out the mud. So it turns out that, of course, Miles really loved the blues, and he also found out his mother could play blues on the piano. And he asked her, says, how come you never told me that you could play the blues? She said, you never asked me. No, Miles, that great record that Kind of Blue, this is the Kind of Blue again. That's a really, I mean, it is. It's the greatest, the biggest, largest selling blues, jazz album in the history of recording jazz in the United States.
It's great music. I mean, as little as I like the film, that's as much as I like the music.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful stuff amongst all the...
Yeah, every time you put it on, you get transported.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Okay, so now we've talked about a couple of things. How about the hula band?
Oh.
You mentioned Hawaii, so I assume that's some of it, but did some of it also come from listening to some of that slack key guitar stuff from Blind Blanken? Because they seem to have taken that from the Hawaiian players, or not, as the case.
Oh, yeah, there were lots of troops that traveled around, carnivals, and medicine shows, and at one point in time, the Hawaiians were a part of these, kind of 10 traveling shows, so their music got around. But for me, it was, I think, an 8-year-old standing in front of a radio, punching in these presets, and happened to punch in Honolulu, and this music came that, as I say, rearranged my molecules, and I never forgot it. And I went in search of it. In a way, I went in search of the same thing with these other musics, and it wasn't until I was in Hawaii and I met this one guy who was a slack key player and ended up being a professor, was on a hokulea, which is a two-hull canoe that they sailed around the world on. Carlos Andrade, and he was teaching, one of the members of my family how to windsurf, and then he also knew Buffy St. Marie, and those guys had really turned on to Mississippi John Hurt. They really liked him, but the history of Hawaiian music goes as deep as the blues. It's very interesting, and I don't mean just interesting aside. It really is. There's a lot going on there, and they've absorbed a whole lot of the styles of blues and music from the mainland here in the United States, and all the different styles of jazz, and then they've influenced country, steel guitar, which is a Hawaiian invention. It's influenced country, gospel, and but yeah, I just through that matrix of the Hawaiian music, I wanted to see what it would be like to play with players that come from there and bring some of my ideas and have a lot of fun.
Well, Hana Pepe, is that how it's
Yeah, Hana Pepe.
That's a fabulous record with the Hawaiian band. Just a fabulous record.
Yeah, the other one's Sacred Island.
Yes.
Yeah. Hana Pepe.
That's Okay, so last one, Mule Boat. You do now. That's the music from the Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston play. But you didn't do the music on Broadway. They had other people. I think Guy Davis or something was in that play originally. Yes, no.
I put the music together and I put the pit band together with the late Kester Smith on drums, Fuzzy Samuels on bass, Kelly with the Kim Jones, Kim Williams, keyboard, and Abdul Wali on guitar. That was our pit band. And then Kenny Neal played lead. And yeah, I suggested him because I didn't want to see another situation. We had an actor that did not know how to play the instrument and was holding it wrong and not doing so. Kenny got to play the lead in that play for about almost 9 months. And James Earl Jones' father was in that. Teresa Merritt was in that from That's My Mama. Let's see who else was in. Joanna Lee, Spike Lee's sister. Vanessa, not the Vanessa Andressa, Vanessa. She was in it. Let me see who else was. Akusma Buzia. But just really a great cast. And Diane McIntyre was the choreographer. And so I worked on the music. I worked on that music in Hawaii. Did all that. I was pretty much the whole band. I think I had one bass player in, one, two, and a drummer, 2 different drummers. And some of it. But then I was all the play bass, guitar, piano, harmonica, sing double. It was a way to stay home and do some different things. So I really enjoyed doing that because Langston's last secretary came with his son to my place in my hotel in Boston, and he came with him, and he said that, hey, there's nobody in the music business that we would really trust this music to, trust this poetry to be turned into music. So, I really enjoyed that. It was great. And then, so this was the first time I get to stand off stage and listen to the music being played. Because usually I'm on stage playing it,
You're in the middle of it as opposed to be able to step back.
Yeah, it was really good.
So, what is it like to write music to Langston Hughes' words?
It's wonderful. I mean, it's really exciting because, he gives you a lot to work with. I mean, a lot of times I can come up with the music, but the words, or sometimes the words come, you gotta find the music to it. I mean, I'm not upset or about doing it that way, but with Langston, it was great. I mean, here are these great lines, and Langston loved the blues. He really loved the blues, and he wrote some lines that were just so great,
So, is there a time when all of a sudden you feel like you're actually very much part of the continuum? There's the Harlem Renaissance from Langston, and here you are 30, 40 years later setting music to this stuff, and it just continues to continue.
Well, yeah. Because I was too young to be in that at the time my parents were. So this gets to, like you say, it gets to be an extension. I get to connect to it, and I love Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale, I can almost say Zora Neale saved my life, because of, because nobody was really writing any positive literature about agriculture, mules and men, Ask My Horse, Jonah's Gourd Vine. I mean, she just went right into the soil of the culture and brought out this great stuff. I mean, she was a trained anthropologist, think it was Melville Instruments, and Franz Boas. She and Elizabeth Barnett, you know, studied under both of those. And Boas changed everything up. See, the old day was here with all the pencils in the pocket and a clipboard, and here's the hut, and in it, you know, everybody's coming in and out of the hut, and you're writing down. And Franz says, no, unless you put on the loincloth and go inside the hut and see, you know, whatever's wrapping around on the spit, you know, and you're looking out the door, you don't have an idea what this is. And so that's what Zora Neale. And then she decided that she was doing all this anthropology, going to Haiti and Jamaica and Honduras and all these other different places. Santo Domingo, she went like, wait a second, I grew up in an all-black town in Florida. I'm gonna go home, take this technology and mine all that stuff at home. And that's what she did. Phenomenal.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me bring it up contemporary a little bit. How did you and Phantom Blues Band get connected up? Because you guys have been together now 25 years, maybe 30 years now.
Yeah. I signed a contract with Private Music, and I made a record with Skip Drinkwater called The Like Never Before. Had a great time making that music, and then went to make the next album, okay. This is Lowell Thomas. Anyway, get ready to make the next record, and they presented John Porter and all these guys. John Porter knew these players, and so we all went. When I went in the studio, I had a tune. I said, if they can cut this tune, I'll record with them. Came in, gave instructions, and the tune just kicked off. Like Trevor said, I can work with these guys. And we started working. So we recorded, and most of them were pretty much high quality, studio musicians that didn't really want to travel. But once they put the music together, they said they didn't really think they wanted anybody else out there with the band. So we worked out some deal to be lucrative enough for them to be out there. It's kind of difficult traveling and being away and there's all these different things, but we figured it out. And yeah, it's been a great association. I can just play anything I want with it.
And it sounds like you guys can go anywhere, pick it right up, and we've had 30 years of benefit of all this, watching you guys play, cruise and everything else.
Right, and then I'm always open so that you can go off and do things in your own way. And they were able to, make their own way as an entity beside me. Taj Mahal and the Phantom Blues Band and the Phantom Blues Band themselves, So they've done very well.
Yeah, it's been great for us as listeners, I can tell you that. Got any advice for up-and-coming musicians? You got all these years in, you've seen, God only knows what all the things you've seen, but there are young musicians here on the ship, and if they came up and asked, what advice would you give them in terms of in the industry and making music?
Well, if there's anything that I would have done different, is I would have spent a little bit more time with the business end of the music. It's really important, because it's like, the thrall of playing the music and feeling it and being involved in it like that is really exciting, and it can sometimes overshadow, where you're going to end up. So you end up in the thrall, and then when you're on the other end of it, you realize that you put out all that energy, you don't have nothing to show for it. So that would be one thing. Know your visit straight, but, you know, really, keep an open door to keep your ear to the ground. I'll never forget, I was working with a bunch of Jamaican musicians, and I was so surprised how much more they knew about music going on here in the United States. You know, it's like, everything's so, you know, oriented toward this spot, that spot. Jamaicans listen, people outside the United States listen to American music with a broad sweep. Africans listen with a broad sweep. Jim Reeves is really popular in Africa, right? Whereas if you don't live in the South, R&B people wouldn't know who Jim Reeves is. Jamaicans know the Grateful Dead music. You know, R&B people do not know the Grateful Dead. Now, they might know George Clinton. You know, and that's sort of like the Grateful Dead for the R&B.